one of the first things you probably need to do is think a little bit about doing a stock take on yourself right now. At the start of the day is probably a good idea to think about where you are right now in your business. Because once you figure out where you are and you figure out what that next step looks like, it becomes easier to know which steps you need to take. So I developed this thinking model called the 4 stages of entrepreneurship. And I've talked about it only once before, and there are these 4 stages. You've got the startup entrepreneur, the proven entrepreneur, systems entrepreneur, and the complete entrepreneur. So as we go through this, just try and recognize in yourself which characteristics you're exhibiting, and you might have a few from a couple of the different stages, and that will help you to then think, well, what needs to get in place to move into that next stage? So the startup entrepreneur. These are the entrepreneurs that have loads of ideas, typically very little focus, and they're jumping from one thing to the next, a little bit like an opportunity seeker. And they're trying to please everyone because they don't have a defined target market, or they don't know exactly what product or service it is that they're selling. So that first stage, they're oftentimes chasing the work to get the work, and it's usually the solo entrepreneur. They'll get the work, they'll do the work, then once the work is done, then they start chasing work again. And they just kind of go around in circles between doing work, chasing to get work, doing work, chasing to get work. Now, the biggest leverage point at that point for the startup entrepreneur is you, because usually you're the solo entrepreneur, or you might be working with a couple of different contractors. Then you kind of move through, and quite a few of you might be in this stage where you then become the proven entrepreneur, or you want to become a proven entrepreneur, where you start to get more focus because you know what it is that you're selling and you know who it is that you're selling to. You're already starting to get some good results, and you're getting clients giving feedback to you saying, yes, you're on the right track. At this point, you want to make sure that the concept, the product that you're selling, the marketplace actually wants. Because in that first stage, you have no idea, but now you're kind of getting a bit more of an idea, but you're still wearing all of the hats in the business. You're the salesperson, you're the accounting person, you're the customer service, you're still doing some of the work, and you're jumping a lot around the business. And oftentimes you think the intuitive thing, this is where people get stuck. They'll think, oh, for me to move through to the next stage, all I've got to do is sell more product. So they're focusing on gross, not profit, which means just because you're selling more doesn't mean you're making more. And that it's a little bit counterintuitive. You need to first make sure what you've got is solid and sound. Make sure the numbers are sound before you start to scale and do some of the things we talk about later. Because if you don't have that foundation in place, you'll just end up if you do end up selling more, you'll break the business because then you can't deliver through to the client. So very important to make sure that you keep an eye on those numbers. Then stage 3, you've got a good lead flow. So this is the systems entrepreneur. You have, consistent leads coming into the business, and you're very task-driven though. You're just doing to-do lists, and you're delegating out work to different assistants, and it almost feels like you're spinning plates. I bet a lot of people, a lot of business owners in this room fall into this category where the spinning plates of, if you imagine each team member as a spinning plate, because you've started to hire a team to support you, you're spinning a plate to keep them busy, you go to the next one, 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 you spend half the day keeping your team busy, and then by the time you get to the end of the week and you're spinning that last plate, you've got to jump back to the first plate and start spinning it again to keep them busy. Otherwise, nothing gets done. But it means that you don't ever actually free yourself up to do any work. Has anybody found themselves in that place? Yep. So the idea of like stage 2 and 3, a lot of people will fall into that category. And again, it's like the intuitive, the counterintuitive insight that'll move you through to the next level. You think, okay, all I've got to do then, we're so busy, all I've got to do to break through to that next stage is I just have to hire another staff member. Then they can handle some of my work. But that doesn't help you. That just means you've got another plate to spin. So really, to break through to the next stage, you have to have systems and processes in place so that then you can get things done without you being a critical piece in actually getting it done. So that's kind of, particularly on those last 2 stages where people think, oh, this is how I move through, but where they actually get stuck. And then the final stage is the complete entrepreneur. And that's where the business starts to run without you. You've freed yourself up and you're starting to make passive income by buying your time back by having these processes and procedures in place and having the business work without you. And in the previous stages, the way that you make money is with cash flow. So cash flow comes in and you're effectively swapping time for dollars. But when you move into this final stage, where you actually make most of your money is in a capital event. So when you either sell a business or sell an asset, that's when you get your big payday. That's kind of like that fourth stage, and you're not swapping time for dollars. But you still have to move through each of those stages because you need cash flow. You have to put food on the table and a roof over your head and stuff like that. So you've got to get cash flow, but you're really working up to the point where you can then start to deal in terms of assets and then buying and selling assets, and that's where you'll get your really big paydays.